it's wonderful to sit with all the online people, the online Zoom Zennies, and the in-person. All right, there were a couple more people who was here for the first 3 days, and they're gone, so we're down to 3 in person. Myogetsu and Kyokozan and Sarah here. So, what a beautiful talk Myogetsu gave yesterday about the lineage, about Maizumi Roshi, and then talking about his teisho on the 3 seals, the 3 Dharma seals. Arf, arf. Okay. And so these things jumped out at me when I was listening to it. So if you haven't listened to it, listen. I did make a recording on YouTube. So also from her first talk, no self is not attached to anything, so it can work with everything. This concept of no self, isn't that a great teaching? No self, how do we practice with that? No self is not attached to anything, so it can work with everything. So that's goes along our my talk about the 3 tenets as well of not knowing, right? You're not attaching to your ideas that you're pretty used to, and probably, just it's a habitual part of your mind, but can you let that go? Not attached to anything, concepts, ideas, beliefs. So then you can work, everything then is workable that comes up in your life. And then that second tenet, right, is bearing witness to it, to whatever's arising for you. And that is, I interviewed Renee Ironhawk for my September issue of my newsletter. And it was so beautiful. I asked her the last question, it was a brief interview, and I said, you know, what stood out for you for the Native American Bearing Witness retreat? She was one of the elders. And she said it was the way that Zen peacemakers could bear witness to tragedy. She said that was really, it was really kind of hit her. It was so similar to the Lakota way of humility. And I thought that was an interesting way to look at bearing witness, right? You have to be humble in order to listen, to really listen. Because if you're not going to hear anything. You're just into your own whatever is going on, right? So that, I thought that was a beautiful way to say what bearing witness meant. Humility, the Lakota value of humility. Another thing that Myogetsu said, when you do not see this no self, suffering is waiting for you. Absolutely, it's just like, that they go together. If you don't see no self, you suffer. And then don't mix up what we think with what actually is. Right? We're trying to see things as they really are. And when we get in the way, we meaning the ego usually, right? The self, how do we can't see anything else. It kind of takes over this ego. So don't mix up what we think with what actually is. So then we're having to drop a lot of what we think, our attachments to ideas. Again, that's practicing not knowing, letting go. And the teaching of impermanence is all about letting go. Things are always in flux. I love that. It's in flux. So how can you, well, you can get attached, absolutely, and we do. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but just know you're gonna really suffer. But at the same time, you know, there's love, right? And get really attached to your partner, for example. And, you know, having to let go is not an easy thing, but isn't that something to ponder? Those, that, what was it? The, what do you call it? It was what the Buddha taught, right? Listen, reflect, practice, and examine, right? That's how we live the Dharma here. So, you know, we're listening to what? Right? Yeah, what do we listen to? Others, ourselves, right? Listen to things that we can't hear, nature, for example, that are all having an impact on us because we're so interrelated. Can we really hear and see that interrelationship? Right? Listen to our hearts. That's nonverbal communication right there. And then we reflect. We hear the teachings, right? And we're reflecting. Okay. And we're using our minds, our brains, to see how that teaching might work in our lives. So we're reflecting, we're thinking about it. And then we practice them. We practice that teaching. Okay, let's try this out. Right, and the precepts are great to practice, right? The precepts, we've been using Eiken Roshi's book, The Mind of Clover, for practicing the precepts. And every time you know, we study this together, every time, you know, it's like new. Oh my God, I didn't see this in the precept before. So we try to do it, and they're all hard to do, it seems. Well, not all, but it's a challenge to be aware of something and then to do it. And like the Ango, for example, we are intentionally practicing, maybe upping our meditation a little bit, coming to the studying about the Dharma, doing service, really being intentional with our lives. I've also started this intentional practice for my hula students. I'm calling it the Hula Inspired Practice Challenge, HIPC, HIPC. And 13 of my students are doing this, and I'm including, you know, time to take care of our body, mind, being in nature, which kind of helps both of those, right? And study. And the body is the hula practice and other kinds of body exercise, good food, nutrition, right? Rest. And then taking care of your mind, I've put down mindfulness meditation. So, and then we practice and then we examine, okay, how was that? How does this feel for me? And something happening? Well, maybe not yet. Maybe I need to do it a little longer. Or, oh, that's really bad. I think I'm not going to do that again. You know, you have to examine. So in our practice, Soto Zen meditation, right, Dogen, our founder, stressed the importance of Zazen as the central practice of Buddhism. You know, this thing about ancestors is kind of interesting to me. Not only our Dharma ancestors, which I think is wonderful, but I think our family of origin ancestors is also very interesting. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I'm very interested in learning about my family of origin as well. And it's really interesting because my grandmother, I think I told some of you this, my grandmother had a document that she gave to her daughter, who gave it to her daughter, my cousin. It was all in Japanese, and we finally got it translated after, I don't know how many years, 30 years, 50 years, I don't know. It's been a while. And it's a family genealogy of the Tanoues, my paternal. But the thing about this family genealogy, she had it, but for some reason, her husband, my grandfather, is not on this genealogy. So that's really interesting to me. So we're trying to, the cousins are trying to figure out, because there's some pretty cool people in this genealogy that I'd like to be related to. Is that ego? What is that? So one of the cool people in this genealogy is this emperor, the 50th emperor of Japan, Emperor Kanmu, which he was an interesting guy. Yeah, he had like 16, empresses and 32, imperial children and all of that. But the other interesting thing that he did was he sponsored 2 people to go to China, Buddhists, to go to China to study with Chinese Buddhists. And one of these was the head of the Tendai sect, and who came back and formed the Tendai sect. And the other was Kukai, who started the Shingon sect, which is the Vajrayana Buddhist part. And the Tendai person, which I've forgotten his name, and I thought I had it here, but he started the Bodhisattva, brought Mahayana into the Buddhist practice and the precepts, which is interesting, and some meditation as well. And then Dogen studied 400 years later, this was in 700 AD, 400 years later, Dogen, he ordained as a Tendai priest, and then, left because, went to China, said, he wasn't getting enough with the Tendai sect. It was like, if we're enlightened, why do we have to practice? That was his question, and that's why he went to China. If we are already enlightened as we are, then why practice? That's a good question. Especially now especially now, there's so many distractions that you could be distracted in. Endless samsara, endless. And it's fun too, some of that samsara. Okay, anyway. And then I loved Maizumi Roshi's quote. appreciate your life as your most precious treasure and take care of it. This is Maizumi Roshi, our root teacher, who brought, and Diane said it so beautifully, right? He really sacrificed a lot to come to this country, right? That's why we have this temple here. Maizumi Roshi, appreciate your life. I don't want to be too heavy on this, but it is one precious life here, one precious dharma here that is part of a big dharma. Yes. And then Anne Hogetsu's beautiful comment. I am a part of the lineage, and I'm transmitting it in every part of my life. So Hogetsu did Jukai. She studied the precepts and she took a bunch of Zen vows on really living these precepts. And so she's part of the lineage. And she also now has this Episcopal path as well that's joining with the Zen into her. So this deep interrelationship, seeing this deep interrelationship, you know, it's all nice conceptual, but how do you really live it in your life? That's what it's all about. How do we live this in our life? And why I love the Native American teachings is because they seem to really see it. They get it. They're in nature. I think that makes a huge difference. So in the book, Mind of Clover, there's a chapter called The Morning Star. And there's a quote from a Haudenosaunee peacemaker who was very renowned. He founded the Iroquois Confederation. And he presented this address at the UN in Geneva in 1977. Now, I don't know if the peacemaker was before this time. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, this is a part of the address. And it says, we are shown that our life exists with the tree life, that our well-being depends on the well-being of the vegetable life, that we are close relatives of the four-legged beings. In our ways, spiritual consciousness is the highest form of politics. We believe that all living things are spiritual beings. Spirits can be expressed as energy forms manifested in matter. A blade of grass is an energy form manifested in grass matter. The spirit of the grass is that unseen force which produces the species of grass, and it is manifest to us in the form of real grass. I mean, this sounds like physics to me, right? Energy and, right, all of these molecules coming together, densely forming grass. And I wanted to pass around this grass seed that came from Matotipila. It was a grass seed that, you know, I was sitting in the grass a lot at Matotipila, which is one of the most sacred sites. It's Devil's Tower in Wyoming, right? And it kind of looks like a little arrow with a curlicue thing, so it sticks really good to your pants and stuff like that. because they know how to, how to get around. And that place was such a special, special place. So I did a little writing in my newsletter that came out yesterday about this place. I loved the land. The land felt so good to me. And so I was really excited to find one grass seed had managed to, come home with me. Oh yeah, so I should show you this cute thing here. See, it's really tiny for those of you on. It's kind of hard to see, right? Because it's so small and it's getting, yeah, I guess it can't, the camera can't focus, it's too small. Anyway, this is it. This is the grass seed. From Mato Tipila. So they were all over, but I really like that grass seed. It's like an arrow. Also about Dogen, he mentions, well, he talks about shikantaza. It's a way of meditating, of just sitting. We call it nothing, he calls it nothing but precisely sitting. And he describes it, which is nice, which is a kind of sitting meditation in which the meditator sits in a state of brightly alert attention that is free of thoughts, directed to no object, and attached to no particular content. Isn't that beautiful? And around this time in Sesshin is when I can get glimpses of shikantaza. Glimpses, right? So it's, again, let me repeat that. It's a kind of sitting meditation in which the meditator sits, quote, in a state of brightly alert attention. So if you've been sleepy, I'll talk to you about that too, okay? Brightly alert attention that is free of thoughts, directed to no one object, and attached to no particular content. So you're kind of, thoughts will arise and then you let them go. And there's this vast emptiness, kind of spaciousness, I guess is the better word here, a vast spaciousness. And you're just sitting like, I think maybe a mountain sits. So if you've been sleepy, and I have been sleepy on the cushion, Dogen also talks about posture as being important, posture. And the posture that, your back has natural curves in it, right? So you're not straightening out those curves, but you are kind of sitting erect, but not rigid. And there's a way that I call it celestial gravity is pulling up your head, like sucking up your head. Instead of pushing in your back, your lower back, you're actually pulling up your spine and noticing your chin. If your chin is way out here, there's a chance you might be daydreaming. So just notice, it's again, you're just kind of noticing your body, right? And your chin could be just a little bit in, as if you're holding an orange, a small orange here. And so you're like pulling up through the crown of your head, the back of your head. And that's kind of interesting because when I do that, I usually immediately take a very deep breath. And that's good because oxygen is good for the brain. The brain takes 30% of the oxygen you intake, right? When you get sleepy, what do? Yawn, right? You're getting in more oxygen because the brain needs more oxygen. So if you're sleepy, you might try this. Just noticing your posture, noticing how you're breathing. Are you breathing? You know, you could be collapsed back on your chair, which your chest is not, it's harder. Because when you breathe, which I just learned in Pilates class, your intercostals are, and the ribs are actually contracting, so it expands out your chest, because the lungs do not really expand. Anyway. So try it and see if that helps your sleepiness. Because, I mean, if you have to sleep, just sleep on the cushion, okay? All right, but if you want to try being awake, you might try this, that. And then in Fukan Zazenji, Dogen writes, for Zazen, a quiet room is suitable. Eat and drink moderately. Cast aside all involvements and cease all affairs. Do not think good or bad. Do not administer pros and cons. Just letting them all go. Cease all the movements of the conscious mind, the gauging of all thoughts and views. Have no designs on becoming a Buddha. Zazen has nothing whatever to do with sitting or lying down. Well, that's interesting. He just told us we need to be sitting more. Zazen is sitting. And now he's saying Zazen has nothing whatever to do with sitting or lying down. No expectations, definitely. It's how the work with the mind, just let things come, let things go. It's a gentle touch. And yet sort of being alert to how your body is doing. So yes, this oneness of life. How do we bring this realization of oneness of life into our life? What does that look like? So in the mind of Clover, I'm going to just quote what Aiken Roshi says because it's so beautiful. He says, how do we actualize the oneness of all beings? Through responsibility, the ability to respond like that of the clover. When clover is cut, its roots die and release their nitrogen, and the soil is enriched. Earthworms flourish in the rich soil and deposit more nutrients. New seeds fall, take root, mature, and feed other organisms. Clover does not think about responsibility, and neither did Shakyamuni. He simply arose from his seat and went looking for his friends. The clover simply puts down its roots and puts up its leaves and flowers. Fundamentally, the no thought of the clover and the no thought of Shakyamuni are the same. They come forth, and their response to circumstances is to give nourishment. No thought comes forth here as clover, there as Shakyamuni. Single universal nature appears like this in the world. Okay, so I think that's good. So you just, you just, you know, clover is clover. It gets cut and it nourishes the earth, right? So it's in our nature, I believe, to nurture, to nurture. So don't forget about yourself. Okay. Yeah, it says clover, right, is incapable of not nurturing. It can't do anything but nurture. With every fiber, beings of the plant world are guiding others, perpetuating their species, beginning new species as circumstances permit, conveying their vitality to soil, waters, air, insect, animals, and people. This is Mother Nature, we say in Western culture. This is Sambhogakaya, we say in Buddhism, the body of Indra's net, the harmony of universal symbiosis. The Sambhogakaya is also our way of realizing and actualizing that unity. So it's saying it is the harmony of universal symbiosis, and it is also our way of realizing and actualizing that unity. Yes, we'll have to ponder that. I asked Renee this other question. What are the most important elements of your culture that you'd like to share? And she said, I believe that one of the most important elements of our culture is Wolakota. Simply put, it is harmony and balance in our everyday life as being related to every living thing in our universe. I truly believe that this element begins with living with true regard and respect for others and our environment. I think that is Sambhogakaya. Yeah, I truly believe that this element of harmony and balance in our everyday life begins with living with true regard and respect for others in our environment. So this is a wonderful thing to practice, true regard and respect for others and our environment. And there's no separation between us and others and our environment. So if you have true regard for the environment, then it's only natural to have true regard here for you too, right? There's oneness. You're doing it for you, you're doing it for everything. But anyway, it's just there's so much to be aware of and to kind of awaken to in our lives. But again, you know, I do believe that we are, as Eiken Roshi says, we are incapable of not nurturing. And when we don't do that, then we have the spirit of the knife and the axe, right? And we create a lot of havoc. And in terms of the buffalo, right, there estimates of like 30 million buffalo was in the wild at one time in North America. And now there are just a few hundreds left. And there are herds that are, I guess, managed herds, whatever you call, so about 24,000. So it's like imperative that we wake up, that we wake up. Maybe we can have some questions right now about this, and some discussion about this.
This isn't a question, but I just want to say, I like the tip you gave about when you're falling asleep and keeping yourself awake. And when I took foundations of mindfulness from Roshi, you came in and did a session on posture. It was really good. And I wonder if you could record that and maybe have it for all of us who
Yeah, sure, I can do that. Sure,
because I
sure.
think your teachings on these sort of things are really clear. And those sorts of things are really helpful, especially in the middle of a retreat. I almost never fall asleep, but about this time in a retreat, sometimes I start to get drowsy during meditation. Those are really good. I just want to say I appreciated that tip.
Thank you, because I've spent many hours asleep on the cushion. I can tell you. Yes, yes, I have, because I have not been, it's nice to reread Dogen and the Fukan Zazenji, where he really stresses posture. He does in it. And so I didn't used to read very much in the early days. I just sat, because that's, Roshi would give wonderful teishos, not so much on the posture, but since I ordained, I thought, I better read Dogen a little bit. And so I've been reading, and it's been really making a lot of sense to me. How do you, yeah.
I haven't read Dogen really very much, and what little I've read, I find really difficult. And
oh yeah, yeah.
I didn't realize that there would be something so practical, like in the middle of Dogen, and maybe a workshop or something sometime would be cool.
Maybe on that Fukan Zazenji, yeah, maybe so. Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. I think that was one of the first things he wrote when he came back from China after sitting with Ryushin. Yeah. Yeah, well, if you think of a question, I actually wanted to read another story to you, because I don't know, those of you who read Eve Marco's blog, she had a really good one. Did you read Thumper and Fog Seeker? It just came out. So Eve went to visit Peter Cunningham, who is a longtime Zen person. He's a photographer, and he actually documented Bernie and Maizumi Roshi. He's got a fabulous book about them. I think it might be I'm not sure, photographs from all the way. I think he started studying with Bernie, and then, Bernie's transmission, Bernie going to Japan, fabulous photos of he and Maizumi Roshi. Yeah, so that's Peter Cunningham. He's a wonderful photographer, and he's also a member of the Bernie's Order of Disorder. Odd, right? That's the clown order, okay? That's one thing, if you take yourself too seriously, you're a goner in Zen. Forget it, okay? That's all I can say. You gotta laugh, and Bernie started this Order of Disorder for people to do, the opposite. Like, don't be here now is one of their mottos. Don't be here now. All right, and doing a backward bow. Yeah, and walking backwards, and yeah, it's a great order. Anyway, he has a home on Grand Manan Island, which is off the coast of Nova Scotia. It's part of Maine, I think, still, but you have to go through Canada to get to that island. And his father studied fog from that island. I thought, wow, that's interesting. So Eve went to visit, to a little vacation, which she really needs. She went out there and she wrote this story called Thumper and Fog Seeker. And on it, there's a picture of two boats. There's Thumper, the bigger boat which you'll hear about, and then Fog Seeker is the smaller boat that Peter's father would go out and study fog with. Okay, so this is the story. Once upon a time, on an island far to the north, there were two boats. Both were moored off a wharf called the Shed. The big one was called Thumper because its engine thumped very loudly. Early each morning, it would go out, thump, 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 to get haddock, scallops, salmon, mackerel, and even small herring. Each late afternoon, as the light failed, it would thump, thump, thump its way back to the harbor with its catch. It liked to thump loudly to announce it was back. The second boat was small and old. It didn't have a big engine like Thumper, so it stayed on the quiet side. It was called Fog Seeker. Thumper would come back after a day of fishing, sidle along Fog Seeker, and say proudly, "Look what I brought." Fog Seeker would ask, "What did you bring, Thumper?" Thumper would thump. "I brought lots of mackerel and salmon." Fog Seeker thump, thump, thump. Thumper would look down on the small boat and smirk. "And what did you do all day, Fog Seeker?" "I looked for fog," said Fog Seeker. "What about fish?" asked Thumper. "I don't fish." Thumper started laughing. "Tell me, does fog feed people?" "No," said Fog Seeker. "Does fog make any money?" "I don't think so," said Fog Seeker. "So what good is it? What good are you?" And Thumper thumped self-importantly. Everybody knew that the only thing that mattered was fish. Haddock, haddock, haddock. Salmon, salmon, salmon. What else was there? Poor little Fog Seeker, wasting her days always looking for fog. What a silly thing for a boat to do. One day, Thumper was busy fishing when the air started to thicken. Thumper thought. But it was still early, plenty more time to fish. Thumper fished some more, and the next time he looked up, the sky was turning a thick gray. Uh-oh, Thumper thought, I really should head home. But it was a good day for shrimp. It wasn't always a good day for shrimp. Just a little more, thought Thumper, just a little more. Finally, Thumper stopped, looked around and said, "Where is home?" He didn't know because around him, everything had turned thick and gray. No sign of the shed, no sign of the pier, no sign even of the sun. Thumper thumped and thumped as loud as possible, but he had no idea where to go. Suddenly, a shape glided softly out of the mist. Thumper's heart thumped loudly. Fog Seeker! The small old boat approached and gave Thumper a friendly bump. Fog Seeker, what are you doing here? I'm home, said Fog Seeker. I found fog. I love fog. I feel more at home here than anywhere else. What are you doing here, Thumper? Are you fishing? I'm lost, Fog Seeker, and I'm scared because I don't know how to find my way home. Can you see me? Fog Seeker asked. If I stay close, I see you. Then follow me. But how can you see anything? Asked Thumper. There are big and dangerous rocks out there, and you're just a little boat. Trust me, said Fog Seeker. Stay close, and I'll bring you home. Thumper stayed close to his little friend. He thumped loudly sometimes when he saw a sudden sandbar on which he could get stuck, or the sharp edge of a rock that peeked out of the water and which could put a big hole in him. But he stayed with Fog Seeker while Fog Seeker found his way in the fog, and after a long, scary time, Fog Seeker slowed down and finally came to a stop. Thumper looked up, and there was the wharf. There was the shed. We're home, Thumper, mooring right between Fog Seeker and the wooden posts of the wharf. How did you find your way? I couldn't see anything in that fog. I think that's because you're always looking out for fish so you don't see anything else, said Fog Seeker. I've been seeking fog my entire life, and the fog contains everything. Fish, rocks, islands, birds, other boats, winds, clouds, rain, everything. I don't see them. If you're just looking for fish, you miss everything else, said Fog Seeker. I'm used to making my way through the mist, seeing many different shapes, but I don't focus on them, see? I'm just looking for fog. But how did you find the shed? Asked Thumper. I could hear the gulls crying, said Fog Seeker. Gulls live on the island because it has fresh water, so I just followed their cries. Thumper was amazed. He had been so scared of getting lost. He looked nervously at his little friend. Do you think I should stop fishing? Thumper asked. No, said Fog Seeker. You are a great fishing boat and you feed many people. Your job is to fish. Mine is to always search for fog. Thumper thumped in happy relief. He gave Fog Seeker a little bump. Thanks, pal. You're small and you don't bring any fish home, or fog for that matter, but you got a big heart. Right, so everybody has their gifts and everybody can nurture in some way. Oh yeah, and one more thing. So yesterday, we had a hula day. That's why I wasn't here for Myogetsu's talk or lunch. We were invited to the University of Illinois for their Native Support Program to dance at noon for 45 minutes to anybody who would come by in the Commons area. And so we did. There were 5 of my students and I went. And it was nice. It was sunny. We danced on the, a few people came by. People listened to the music. And what I did was during Samu yesterday, I thought, I better practice hula because I might be dancing, So I put on my earphones and I started listening to some music. And I couldn't believe how beautiful it was and how nurturing to my heart it was. So taking care of heart for me is also important. And so, that's another discussion. How do you take care of your heart? This is living the Dharma. How do you take care of your heart? How do you take care of your body? How do you take care of your mind? This is living the Dharma. So I thought I would dance this hula for you right now. And it's called Waipio Pa'ea'ea. It is about a beautiful valley on the island of Hawaii, which is where I am from. And it is where the ali'i, the chiefs and chiefesses, that was like their home down in that beautiful valley where there are temples and there is rich, fertile soil, and there's a river that runs through it into the ocean, a freshwater river that runs through it. So all kinds of things grow there. And so I'm going to get this so you can hear the music. I'm going to put this a little set up here. And Waipio is the name of the valley, and it's Pa'ea'ea means Pa'ea'ea means like the calm seas of, or the calm waters of Waipio Valley. So just listen to the music and just let the music kind of nurture, well, just enjoy it, okay? That's all, just enjoy it. Okay, here you go. And don't, just let the music go through your body. And then, oh yeah, I was going to maybe do a little translation of the Hawaiian as I danced. Mm-hmm. There in the valley, this fresh spring bursts forth, nourishes the land. It was there I saw the twin waterfalls. Beloved is this land of Umi, the great chief. Beloved is Waipio of the calm seas. There in the valley, Waipio, the spring bursts forth, nourishes the land. It was there I saw the twin waterfalls. Beloved is this land, the great chief, beloved. Waipio of the calm seas. And there's a river that flows to the ocean, and everything it touches, it loves. How I love to go swimming in this pond. Makes me feel so good, my body splashing. Beloved, it's this land, the great chief. Waipio of the calm seas. There's a river, flows into the sea. Everything it touches, it nourishes. How I love to go swimming in the pond. It makes me feel so good. Love it. I know. So, oh yeah, there was one more story I was going to tell you. One more. Yeah, maybe not. Okay. Anyway, the hula is really a dance from the heart, really. Once you learn the motions, right, you're not thinking about all the motions, then you just let your heart lead your motions. So I did share a hula at the Native American Bearing Witness retreat at the very end in our council. And it was really interesting because right after that, I just where I had felt a little bit of separation with the Native Americans, after I shared from the heart there, I felt there was no separation. I felt like, there's this one family feeling, especially with Wendell Yellow Bull, because he's a big guy, and I'm a little, sometimes with tall people, I'm a little nervous, okay? But, and he's a big guy, he's a really big guy. But after that, there was just something that shifted. So I think that in Zen also, you're living from this heart place, right? You're being present with what is here with you, and your response, your actions in the world reflect that. I think that's dharmic. That's living your dharma instead of always up here, right? So, any questions or anything like that, or comments or thoughts about that?
Sensei, I just thought that was just beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. I feel like I really needed that. And I just love when you translate too. So I appreciate you doing that as you're dancing. And I think that's so lovely, that concept of the river, everything it touches, it loves. Like, how wonderful. Like, I see that in you. Thank you.
Right, right. And that's this nurturing. You just can't help but nurture, right? If you can just see clearly and let go of things that are hindering, holding you back, right? Letting go. Yeah.
It's perfect for Friday of a retreat.
What?
It
What
was
was
perfect for the Friday of a retreat. We needed it. And I'm glad to be part of the only Zen center with hula.
We are actually so far anyway, which we want to get more hula into those Zen centers.
Be careful what you say, Robert. She's going to have you up and dancing pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually, at the Lens Foundation, I met the editor of Lion's Roar. I think I might have told you, Robert. And she I forget her name, but she said, she's always looking for different things. And I mentioned, oh, well, I do, hula. And she said, oh, that sounds interesting. Write something. And so, I mean, that was in June anyway. So maybe I'll try to get to it, And also Tricycle is interested at some point to doing having me offer a workshop in hula and Zen actually online with them. So, it's slowly happening.
I love what you said, Sensei, about how is the heart.
Oh, wait.
Thank you, Sensei. And I absolutely loved what you said about how as we nourish our hearts and as the heart expands and grows, there's a lot more room for others.
Yeah. And that's the whole practice, isn't
is
it?
the whole
Cultivating
practice,
that
yeah.
compassion in the bodhicitta in the heart, right?
Yes. And you said our life is, our dharma of our life, if we're true to that, it only gets better and better and better. And really there is no separation. So thank you for that. Beautiful.
Thank you. And, and then no self, just working with that, right? That's a big one right there. All of that self-concern. It's not saying that you should not be, you should take care of yourself, right? But when it kind of crowds out everything else, right? We have to remember that teaching of no self, that there is no independent self. We are all truly, truly interrelated. And not only with humans, right? With the natural world as well. And that's a hard one to really grok, I think. And that's why I'm so happy about Sesshin, because we get a little closer to understanding that, I think.
Sensei? Oops, sorry. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Are you able to hear me?
It kind of is coming in and out a little bit, but I can hear you now, yeah.
Right. Wonderful. And hello, Sangha. I just wanted to just briefly thank Mayugetsu also for yesterday. I was cut out, but I wanted to say that I was really struggling with sitting this Sesshin. And then listening to Mayugetsu's talk yesterday, it really helped me understand a little bit more about why I'm sitting. But today, I know for the sake of time, I just want to say briefly about nurturing. I was swimming during the body portion of one of the days, and there was this baby dragonfly in the water that seemed to have drowned. And I normally would just, push these insects, out of the water, out of my way. And I lifted this dragonfly out to the shore, to the side of the pool. And it was very windy. And I just kind of cut my hands over it and made a decision to breathe with this dragonfly. I was not ready for this dragonfly to be gone. And
I was looking in this little hole of my hand and I was like, come on, buddy, come on, you can do this. And I was actually like petting its little bottom and, you know, pulling apart its little wings, and it was just saturated in water and it was done. And it was just, you know, and probably 10 or 15 minutes after blowing on it and covering it and cheering it on, all of a sudden its little front little whatever started wiping off its face. And I was like petting its head. I think I might have poked it in the eye. My little finger, and its little thing was like on my fingertip, and I was like touching it, and I was like, you know, come on, you can do this, you can fly. And it would flap over, and then another minute wasn't dry. It began to come back. It began to breathe, and it was kind of like pushing me off of it when I was petting its, you know, back. And I was just so connected to this little teeny dragonfly, and we were breathing together, and I was like, just breathe, just you know. And then all of a sudden it just flew away, you know, just suddenly. And
Wow, nice.
it was just magnificent to just become this little teeny dragonfly. And that's what I feel like I heard today when you were talking, that is what I do while I'm here, is nurture what I can. So thank you, and thanks everyone for listening about Little Dragonfly.
Thank you, Jackie, for that act of compassion for the dragonfly. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to kind of notice our environment, what's going on, and, you know, see what we can do to help. I love watching, you know, on Facebook when they save animals, when people save, you know, it's just really great, you know, the cutting stuff from whales, and I mean, oh God. Well, okay then. Oh yeah, I was going to show you this too. So at the end of, look at this. At the end of the retreat, so I was walking, I was going to take a, it's an arrow here, it's a wooden arrow. I was going to take a chair, you know, a fold-up chair to Wendell's car, and then he gets out of the car and he gives this to me, which is so nice. And he said, someone gave this to me and now I'm giving it to you. You know, that's how they are, you know, they just give away their things. Isn't that great? And I said something like, oh, okay, so after you give this to me, then I'll give it to somebody else. I was thinking that was probably not the right thing to say. But anyway, isn't it great? Yeah, fabulous. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Have a good lunch. It's great.